Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a video on PayPal. I'm going to let you guys know my thoughts on it and explain a little bit why I own the stock and buying more of the stock and want to hold this thing for a long time. So we're going to take a brief look right here at the chart. It's been through quite the ride and we're just kind of bouncing around down here. But this is a weekly chart, so it goes back quite a ways. The peak here was in 2021. Everything peaked. This whole run here, that's just all COVID money, people bored, running and pumping and dumping the stock. Um, but even if we go back here, it was 113 in July 2019. So we're about 30% lower um, where we were 4 years ago. So keep that in mind. Now let's go over to my pros and cons here for PayPal. So pros, it's a leader in the industry, one of the leaders. It's a name brand. PayPal also owns Venmo, so that's a big piece here. It's not just PayPal that a lot of people, use for commerce and eBay and stuff like that. That is another pro. Ecomm, e-commerce. You'll see, pay now with PayPal on all kinds of websites. So e-commerce not going anywhere. Sure, there's a lot of competition, which we'll talk about in a minute. Um, so leader in the industry, name brand. They have a good valuation because the stock has fallen so far, and there's perceived risk out there. You're not paying a real high premium to buy PayPal stock right now. They're a proven performer. They've been around for a long time. Um, they've proven competence. They haven't blown up like some of our favorite banks or whatever out there, but they've been around for a long time. You're dealing with people's money, so you have to get it right. And I haven't heard a whole lot of horror stories. I mean, I use Venmo multiple times a week for my business, and I've never had any problems with it. There's been no issues, so that's great. Um, as a user and as a brand, that's big, especially when it comes to moving and holding people's dollars. You got to get that right. They have consistent revenue, really good cash flow. They touch a lot of money. They spend a decent amount. They're not as profitable as some of their other competitors like Visa and MasterCard, but they're a little bit different businesses. So now let's go over to some of the cons. Some of the cons here, increased competition is likely to keep coming. So you've got Square, Cash App, you've got Apple Pay, you've got Pay with Amazon, you've got Affirm, all the buy now, pay laters. One thing that PayPal started doing in 2020 is they also have their buy now pay later program, which is actually growing pretty good for them. So um, their growth on peer to peer has been slowing down because they've been around for so long. They're not gaining users at 30-40%. They're not a big grower. They're right around 15% growth each year. So that is a little bit on the slower side. That's still not bad, 15% growth. Um, but with the increased competition, their growth has slowed down a little bit. They are also appointing a new CEO. So the current CEO has said, "Hey, I'm out. I'll finish out. I think he's got the rest of this year, and then they're going to be appointing a new CEO soon." So there's a little bit of uncertainty there. Who's that going to be? Is this going to be a good person or a bad person? Nobody will know until they appoint the CEO. So there's just uncertainty there, and the market doesn't like uncertainty. Growth slowing down. We just talked about that. That kind of ties with competition. And then the buy now, pay later loan risk. Um, because they are doing some of these buy now, pay laters, they're taking on the risk of the person not paying them back. So there is a little bit of loan risk there, but what PayPal does is they write the loans and then they sell the loans to another financial institution. So they just recently, a few weeks ago, sold a big tranche of loans that they wrote to another financial institution. So that was good news for them because they get those loans off of their books. They get a nice big fee from the bank that they sold it to, and then they get to go write new loans to new customers. So that is a it is a risk, but it is also one of their fastest growth and revenue streams that they have because they just started it. So we'll see about that. That is just something to keep on your radar. I didn't really know that they were doing that until the last handful of months. So that is good because that also really ties in with their e-commerce platform. So if you're a seller on, let's say you're selling a bunch of hats, you can work with PayPal, and instead of having to front up the, buy a bunch of hats and store them in a warehouse, you can kind of do it as the orders come through, and you don't have to buy the hat until the customer pays. So it's just kind of it's a great thing for sellers. It gets people into their ecosystem. So that's going to keep growing, and we're going to keep seeing more of the entrepreneurs, self-employed people doing little things like that. If you're an Etsy person, you may use PayPal for your shop. So, anyways, those are the pros. Those are the cons. Now, let's look at some of the valuation here. So, I don't want to get too crazy into all of this stuff, but I put PayPal in a fintech category, financial technology category. And some of their larger competitors are a company like Visa, MasterCard, Square, Intuit, Shopify, um, things like that. So when we look at those companies, this is their current revenue. So Visa gets around 31 billion a year, and PayPal makes 29 billion, 28 billion a year in revenue. So, I mean, they're no slouch. PayPal's a lot bigger than I realized the more I look into them. And when we look at their earnings, so I love on TradingView, you can see all their quarterly earnings here. Out of the last, we're going all the way back to 2015, they've only missed their guidance twice. So again, this is the consistency. This talks to their cash flow, and also the management. So I know the CEO is leaving, but the CEO is just one person. They do a good job of keeping things nice and steady. And if we look at the revenue growth, so here we're in 2018. This quarter they had 3.8 billion, and if we just keep kind of moving forward, you got 4.3, 5, 5.5, and then 6. So you can see it's a nice steady 6.8, 7.3, and their last quarter was 7 billion, and their next quarter they're estimating 7.2 billion, and that's just in 3 months. So again, they're making around 28 billion a year in revenue, which to me, I thought that was a lot more than I realized. So where do I have my fintech? If we look at a Square, which is their closest competitor, Square's pretty good on their earnings too, but there has been more misses, and definitely Square is getting a lot less revenue. So they're around 4.65 billion last quarter. So it's still pretty close. And then market cap, Square is $43 billion. So if you were to buy the whole company, you have to pay $43 billion. And PayPal is $79 billion. So the whole company is worth $79 billion, but they get $28 billion a year in revenue. Sorry, I got all kinds of noise going off. They're installing solar on the roof this week. So again, revenue, cash flow looks really good. And then when we look at, I had something else on here to show you guys, their balance sheet. Again, market cap 78 billion. Total debt, you're blocked by my fat head here. Their debt is around 11.5 billion, and their cash is around 11 billion. So they have a lot of cash. They do have more debt than cash, just by a little bit. Um, but I would say there's more pros here than cons, and definitely in this market environment where there's a handful of stocks that have just ripped super high. I'm not saying this thing's gonna just rip roar like Facebook did, um, but I get a little bit of meta vibes here, where the cash flow is really good, just like Facebook was. It's disliked because of competition and other reasons, and then eventually people realize, you know what, this company is still performing quarter over quarter, and it's not going anywhere. Um, so I'm not saying a ton of money is just going to rush right back into here, but I do think there is some things that they can clean up to get their profit margin a little bit higher. I think I had that over here. So right now their profit margin, if we look at PayPal, is around 41%. So they get to keep almost half of the money that they touch, which I think that's pretty good. Um, so that's my little rundown on PayPal. I like the company, I like the business, and also I like the price that I'm buying it at. So I've been accumulating ever since their last earnings. It's been trickling up. Who knows what happens? Again, I've got these astrology lines here. Maybe we get rejected and go back down to new lows. If that's the case, I'm going to accumulate some more, and I plan on holding this thing for a long time, unless the story changes. So if they come out and they announce Vladimir Putin as the new CEO, maybe things change. But to me, I don't think there's a huge risk here. Again, I'm not a financial advisor yet. Do your own research, do your own due diligence. This is just a company I want to put on your radar. It's a name brand, everybody knows it. If you have any opinions, put it down in the comments, let me know. But for now, be on the lookout for some other videos like this. I got some other ideas that I'm looking at, and there will be a market update coming out soon. That's all I got for you guys. Peace out.